Hey, it's Grady at Twin Creek Audio. I'm back in the studio today with another hybrid mixing video. Today I'm going to take some digital tracks, run them out through my analog console, the Soundcraft Sapphyre recording console, and use some of my analog outboard gear in combination with a few plugins in the box to do this simple rock mix. I'm going to start in the box with the drums, especially here. I'm using the SSD sampler here, and it was a pretty simple kit. It's just the Deluxe Rock Slate 01 kit. 2 kick drum sounds in the SSD mixer that I'm mixing and sending those to one track here. And then that track goes to one individual output on the audio interface, which is connected to a single channel on the console. In this case, it's channel 1 on the console. You'll see that here in just a second. The snare is done the same way. You've got a snare direct and a snare direct 2 sound in here in the sampler. And so I've done what I wanted to do with those and balanced those here. And then they go to this track in the DAW, and they hit the Softube Tape plugin, and they go to another different interface output that's connected to channel 2 on the analog console. Over here on the hi-hat, the toms, the cymbals, overheads, those are done the same way. I've combined the hi-hat and the overheads and cymbals to a single stereo output on the audio interface that goes to a pair of channels on the console. The room mic goes to a pair of channels as well, because this is a stereo room sound that is coming out of the SSD sampler over here. So in here you can see that I've got each of these individual tracks in the DAW assigned to a separate audio interface output, and then those interface outputs are connected to the tape inputs of the large format analog console, the Soundcraft Sapphyre. So this is the Soundcraft Sapphyre. So I have each of the audio interface outputs from my audio interfaces routed to separate tape inputs on this console. On this console, the tape inputs normally appear down here on the large fader, so that's what we're looking at today. Is mostly going to be these large faders. So we've got kick drum. If you remember from the screen capture of the in the box part, this is a combination of 2 kick drum samples in the Stephen Slate sample kit, and then those are sent through one track on the DAW out to this one audio interface output that feeds this channel on the analog console. The same with the snare drum. So you've got kick, snare, and this is toms in stereo. This is overheads in stereo, which has the hi-hat mic and any other auxiliary percussion like the China cymbal, which I don't remember whether that's used in this song, but that's all combined here to this stereo pair. This stereo pair is the stereo room mics from the SSD sampler. This is the bass guitar. Then we've got guitars, and then down here we've got vocals. A lead vocal and then a background and harmony vocal here on this fader. So it's a relatively simple mix. So let's hear what the mix sounds like playing back through the console. I don't have any EQ on and no outboard processing yet. The only thing you're hearing is the things that you saw in the box, which is just the tape plugins, the original sound of the tracks, and then the console itself. So it sounds pretty good already, just running through the analog circuitry. It does have a nice big full sound. Those drum samples sound less like samples than they do in the box. At least they do to me. So we've got a good cohesive analog mix going on already with no EQ and no outboard gear. But I can already tell there are some things that I want to do. First of all, I need to get some compression on the snare drum. The kick drum may be consistent enough and punchy enough as is, so we'll see. But I'm going to go ahead and patch in the Symetrix 501 analog rack compressor to the insert here on channel 2 so we can get some compression on this snare drum. Now we've got to remember to turn on the compressor, because this console has a button up here that enables the high and low shelving EQ and the insert. or rather it switches it to the monitor channel, which is where our signal is. So let's hear what the snare drum sounds like now with and without the Symetrix 501 compressor. I really like the way the 501 brings out the ring of that snare drum sample, or rather that combination of the two snare samples. It brings the ring out, it gives it a lot more excitement, and I'm able to pull that down on the fader a little bit. The kick drum may need some evening out, but I can definitely tell that the bass guitar does, so I'm going to go ahead and patch in one of my favorite compressors on the bass guitar, the Urei LA-10. The Urei LA-10 is a VCA compressor, and it has transformer balanced input and output. Mine is an LA-10, which is just a single channel compressor, though Urei did make the LA-22, which is a 2-channel version of the same thing. So let's patch in the Urei LA-10 on the bass guitar. So here's the bass guitar with the Urei LA-10. Let's make sure I turned it on, and I can turn it on and off with this button on the console, so we can hear what the bass sounds like now with the Urei LA-10. Okay, I added a touch of makeup gain. Let's hear what the bass sounds like with the LA-10 in the full mix now. That sounds pretty good to me. The bass is sitting in the track better. I tweaked the EQ, boosted a little bit of sub low end around 60, 80 hertz, and I pulled out a little bit of low mids, and the bass is sounding really good with that LA-10 on it. I'm going to go ahead and put some compression on these two vocal tracks, because that's the next thing that's really jumping out at me right now. It really needs some help. They're not really loud enough, but when I push them up, then they're too loud. So I'm going to use my ART TCS twin compressor system. I'm going to use one of those 2-channel units on these two vocal tracks. So we'll have one channel on the lead vocal and the other channel on the background and harmony vocal here.
But we turn away. Never
So I went ahead and high passed these vocal tracks and added a little bit of high mids and a little bit of high at 12K, and then about, I don't know, 5-6K. So get those vocals to cut through after the compression dulled them down, but it's definitely making those vocals sound smooth and sitting the mix in the way that I like. I'm not even really going to have to ride these faders that much in the final mix this way with that compressor, keeping those in check for me. Over here on the guitars, I can tell there's a little bit too much low end in this heavy rhythm guitar track, so I'm going to go ahead and high pass those. It looks like I've already done that. I'm going to high pass all these guitar tracks. I think I can high pass all of these. Not really that many of them anyway. These are some clean guitars that are going to come in later here. So I've got high pass on all that stuff except for bass and drums. Now I don't always high pass everything, but for this song, our bass and our drums are really holding down that super low end, and this heavy guitar seems to be making things kind of muddy. So we're going to high pass that. May end up having to take some low end out of it as well. We'll see what that sounds like now. This main rhythm guitar track is just a mono guitar track. There's no compression. I've added a little bit of mid-range here, just a touch of mid-range with the console EQ. That's all I'm doing to that. This stereo pair, which is the heavy guitars that come in just here and there, I've actually pulled some lows and some low mids out of these. Now I'm pulling a different area of low mids out of each side of this, because that gives me a little bit more of a stereo width thing, and I know I'm not losing too much of any one frequency from this, which is basically a single guitar but with some stereo effects, so it shows up here as a stereo pair on the console. I think I need some reverb, at least on these vocal tracks. The drums have a lot of the room mics, the stereo room mics from the samples in here. So I don't need that much reverb on the drums. They sound pretty good. Don't really think I need too much on these guitars because it's going to wash them out too much, but these vocals could definitely use some reverb. So I'm going to patch in my Yamaha Rev500 and we'll use that. Bring it back over here on one of these blue faders so we can blend in some reverb. Let's see, which auxiliary send is auxiliary 3. So auxiliary 3. We need to make this post, and we need to feed some of these vocal tracks out to the Yamaha Rev500, and then that's going to be coming back here on this blue fader. We need to make sure we assign that to the mix bus here, and we should have some reverb. That reverb's way too long. Let me find a different setting on the Yamaha for this vocals. These vocals, that reverb's way too long. It sounds kind of weird. I don't like that. Let's try a different setting. We'll just shorten the decay time of the reverb down to 1.2 instead of 2. See if that sounds better.
but we turn away. Never know their motivation. Notice as much that they're out to get us. We stand strong against.
That seems to work okay, but I think I want to take a little bit of the lead vocal out of the reverb and leave more of the harmony in the reverb. So I've just pulled back the lead vocal a little bit by turning down the aux send on the channel strip, and then I've left the harmony background vocal with a higher feed to aux 3, which goes to the reverb. And then of course this is our reverb return over here, so let's hear what that sounds like together. I like that pretty well, but I'm going to EQ the return of the reverb a little bit. I'm going to actually boost the highs and maybe pull out a little bit of low by about 3 dB each, just to contour the return of that outboard reverb a little bit more to match what I'm hearing in my head that the reverb needs to sound like on these vocals.
So shallow. What can we see? But we turn away. Never know their motivation. Notice as much that they're out to get us.
That's just about perfect, although the high-end boost on the reverb was a little bit too much, so I pulled back some of that, just went with a touch of high-end boost, and I'm still rolling off about 3 dB of low-end here on this stereo channel with our reverb return. Now we need to hear this other part of the song where these other guitars come in so we can make sure that they're blending into the overall mix. I also kind of feel like the room mics on the drums are a little bit too loud, so I'm going to pull those back just a touch. And now we're going to listen to this section with the clean guitars.
Don't take this the wrong. Sitting down, staring out the window. You'll miss it.
So we were able to do a lot with very little, with a little bit of help from the digital side with the tape plugins, and a lot of help in the analog domain with the console and a couple of pieces of relatively inexpensive outboard gear. I think it sounds really good. I'm really happy with the way that turned out. It's pretty cool.
But we turn away. Never
Hybrid mixing's pretty simple. All you need is an audio interface with multiple individual outputs and an analog console of some sort to run those outputs through and combine them in the analog domain instead of the digital domain. I've made a lot of videos about hybrid mixing, including a couple on how to set up to mix on a console like I've done in this video, so I'll put links to those videos at the end of this video and in the video description so you can check those out if you're interested in a setup like mine. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much to all the viewers, all the new subscribers. I hope each and every one of you out there has an excellent and wonderful day, night, evening, weekend, weekday, hour, minute, second, nanosecond, whatever it is you're having. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.